Hey everyone, welcome to this quick guide on how you can set up traces and tool calls for both simulation and observability on Bluejay. And so uh, today I've kind of got this um, billing voice agent that I'm trying to figure out why it went wrong. I'm also trying to figure out why the latency is kind of so high here. And so I've already ran this test. I've created a Bluejay digital human here to basically kind of just inquire about an internet bill. Um, and so going into it, opening it up, I get the same evals and everything that I get as normal on Bluejay. But what I also have is I've integrated tool calls into it. So you can see here, I've actually integrated tool calls and it's getting the customer detail here, but it seems to be getting an output of nothing here. And I've also integrated traces with this. So going to the traces tab here, we can also see a full trace of the entire conversation as it went on throughout the conversation. And so we get everything from like TTS, LM, everything like that. And so first thing we can actually do is analyzing the latency here. We can also actually just ask Bluejay to analyze the traces and see if there were any areas where the agent had above average latency. So it's kind of gotten back to us. Let's full screen this here. We can see that there was just a really so we had slower than average LM responses. So it took like 6 seconds at times and 4 seconds at times. And we also have our TTS node. So the agent just spoke for a really long time, um, and actually had some apparently slow speech synthesis. And so we can kind of take these findings and actually go back and improve our agent. And so this can kind of show just how powerful integrating traces and tool calls with Bluejay and then analyzing it post call and figuring out on a sub-utterance TTS, LLM, SDT level basis where your agent actually went wrong. And so going into more how you can actually integrate these traces with Bluejay, Bluejay kind of offers this integration for traces and tool calls with three main methods. The first being a SIP integration, the second being a WebSocket integration, and the third being like a provider integration. So one that we offer, for example, is LiveKit. We have a LiveKit a native integration to do this. But going into kind of what it takes, there's effectively three main aspects. There's effectively four steps that you want to basically do here. The first step is just starting with instrumenting your agent. So this involves effectively setting up an OpenTelemetry compatible provider. So this can include things like LangFuse, OpenTelemetry, anything like that with your agent. And instrumenting your agent code to export the traces. And so there's a good guide on here on the docs about how you can actually set this up and forward those traces to Bluejay. But going back here, after you instrument your agent with traces, and then also instrumenting with tool calls as well, and keeping track of the tool calls throughout the conversation. The second step would be to collect all that information. So collect the trace IDs that went on during the call, collect the tool calls that went on, and then taking those, and at the beginning of the call, you also have a simulation result ID that Bluejay injects into the conversation, either via like the SIP headers, the WebSocket, or for LiveKit integration, the LiveKit participant. And then the key portion is combining those together and sending it to Bluejay. And so what this allows Bluejay to do is link the trace IDs and the tool calls that went on during the conversation with the actual simulation result that is in Bluejay. And so that's where this step comes in, the final step being just sending to the update simulation result endpoint the simulation result ID alongside the trace IDs and any tool calls, events, metadata that you also keep track of during that conversation. And so hopefully this gives a good idea about how you can do it. So going back to my agent, I've actually set up a LiveKit agent. I've integrated it with SIP. And so I haven't used our exact LiveKit integration, but I've integrated it with SIP to demonstrate how this can work for even a custom integration as well. Effectively, what I'm doing here is I've just set up the tracing as normal, but I've set it up as normal, but I've pointed it to an OTLP endpoint that is Bluejay's endpoint with my Bluejay API key. And so for any sort of trace integration or any sort of instrumentation of traces that you already have, you can just set this up as normal. I can also keep track of the tool calls here as well. and just make sure it's all tracked in a central place. The second step is extracting the simulation result ID. So for a SIP integration, what I've done is I've just extracted the simulation result ID from where LiveKit injects the SIP information into. But for WebSockets, it would be very similar. You just extract it from the first message and something like that with a native integration as well, where you just extract it from where Bluejay would send it to. And then at the end of the call is where we finish by just running this function, which effectively just takes the all the traces that went on during the call, all the tool calls and everything like that, and you just send it to Bluejay using the update simulation result endpoint, passing in both the simulation result ID alongside the traces. And so that's where that full integration basically gets set up. And so hopefully this gives a good idea about how you can kind of connect your system with it and then get insights directly in Bluejay and fully be able to do analysis and tool call analysis and everything like that across traces, tool calls, metadata events, everything like that.